Well, 3 little children, aged 3, 6 and 9, watched when their mum and dad were both murdered by Hamas on October 7. 6-year-old Amalia and 9-year-old Michael ran and hid in a cupboard where they stayed and hid for 14 long hours. They were all alone. And to make it worse, the body of their mother was next to them outside the cupboard. But little Abigail, a toddler, 3 years old, was missing.
זה הסכם בינינו, הוא לא עונה, הוא מצלם. אז אני מרים טלפון לסמדר, לשאול מה קרה. מיכאל, הנכד בן 9, מרים את הטלפון, אומר לו, אני רוצה את אמא. הוא אומר לי, אמא מתה, ואבא מת בחוץ. אני אומר לו, איפה אחותך? עמליה, הוא אומר לי על ידי, איפה אביגיל? הוא אומר לי, לא בבית. בקיצור, שואה.
A neighbour saw Abigail being captured and described her as covered with blood that wasn't hers. Again, just 3 years old. She then spent 51 traumatic days in Hamas captivity. She turned 4 as a hostage, held by terrorists without any family around her at all. And when she was finally released on November 26, little Abigail returned to Israel an orphan. It's one of the saddest stories, and it's told in the book, Saving Abigail, written by her aunt, Liz Hirsh Naftali, who also then made it her mission to bring her great niece home. And I'm pleased to say Liz joins me here now. Liz, thank you and welcome to Australia.
Thank you.
How is Abigail and Amalia and Michael coping now? How do they live with this day to day?
Look, every day they are these beautiful children, and they live with their aunt and uncle who've adopted them. So they now have 6 kids, and they give them a beautiful life. I mean, my niece and her husband are my heroes. They have taken this tragedy and done everything to make something beautiful for 6 children. And at the same time, on that kibbutz that morning, the other 3 children also were survivors. They had Hamas terrorists in their home. They did not find them in their safe room, but they also were there for 29 hours. So we have 6 kids that are all survivors, and my niece and her husband are raising them, and they have a beautiful life, but they have what you explained, which was that trauma and that tragedy of what these 3 children experienced. So,
and what did Abigail go through during her time in captivity when she had no family at all around her? I mean, I can't imagine a little 3-year-old all on her own, but held by Hamas.
She was held by Hamas, but the woman who, after her father was murdered and she crawled out from his body covered in his blood, she went to a neighbor, and miraculously he was opening the door to go out and protect the kibbutz, and there was little Abigail, and he put her with his wife and 3 kids, and they knew each other. Abigail knew this family, and when they were taken off by Hamas terrorists, Abigail was with her. And I prayed that during the whole 51 days that she was with this woman, Hagar Brodich. And she was. And Hagar took care of her like one of her own children. But keep in mind, they were in a dark room. They were starved. They had no hygiene. They had to beg for a piece of toilet paper. And they had nothing for the kids to do. We know what our kids do. They play, they have screens, they laugh, they sing. They were silenced for 51 days.
Does Abigail talk about it now? I mean, how does she process that level of trauma?
Look, it's something that will be with her and her siblings. They'll all carry this for the rest of their lives. But they're little kids, and you let it come out. And everybody in Israel, all of the children, all of the adults, they have therapists, they're all traumatized. But in our case, Abigail goes to school. She gets to play with kids. She is full of energy. She dances, she sings, she's full of life. And if you saw her, you'd say she's just this beautiful child. But if there's a loud noise, she reacts.
You can see it, it's visible.
Yeah, for 51 days, the area she was being in was bombed by the Israeli Defense Force. And that was her experience. But if you saw her, you would think, this child is intelligent, she's dynamic, and you see Michael and Amalia, and they laugh and they play and they have a beautiful life. But as adults, we see their parents aren't there.
Can you tell us a little bit about your battle to bring her home? What did you do? Because you really took on a very active role in this.
Look, when we learned that she had survived, it was something of hope. And I went back to America. I'm from New York, and I went back to America, and I went to Capitol Hill. And I was there with the family of Keith Siegel, his sister, in the beginning. And there were no other people there because they were still in trauma. But I, as an American, I was in Israel on October 7th, and then I returned home. And I basically went to DC with this other woman, Keith's sister, and I took a picture of Abigail, and I made 250 copies, and I gave them out everywhere. And then I made a picture with all the hostages, and I gave them out. And what I just kept doing was telling people, leaders on both sides, that these were people that were stolen, infants, grandparents. And that was the beginning of understanding you just had to keep talking everywhere. Spent a lot of time with the White House, spent a lot of time with other families at the White House and on Capitol Hill, traveling to Doha, traveling to Israel, traveling all around the United States to keep telling the stories and put pressure on the people who can make the difference and bring home the hostages.
There are still 50 hostages. About 20 are believed to be alive. Trump just secured the release of the last American hostage. There is criticism that he just secured the release of one and celebrated that and not the other 20. How do you feel about that?
Look, I'll go back to President Biden. He got out Abigail and 105 women and children in his administration. But for over a year, he could not get the rest out. Then the Trump administration came in, and they were able to secure the release of 33 people. And then it stopped. And now you have Edan Alexander, this beautiful 21-year-old kid, grew up in America, and he was released. But what Witkoff, Steve Witkoff, and Adam Bowler and Trump have always said is that they are going to keep fighting, and that when you see one person free, you have to say it's a blessing. Yeah. But you then keep working, and they are committed to it. And I'm very proud that my American government, Democrats, Republicans, have kept this together, supporting the hostages, supporting Israel, and that President Trump and his team are out there, and they're in the Middle East, and they're getting people to talk. Yeah. And we have to give them the hope and the support. And Edan is the first, they've said, in this round. They know they have to get everybody. And they are committed to getting the 58 people home.
Liz, really appreciate you being here and your book. I know we showed it on screen before, but your book, Saving Abigail, oh, there it is again.
Yeah.
You can order it online on Amazon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate this. Thank you.